Hey, what is up, listeners? This is the SBS Report, the Cornell ILR Sports Business Society's new radio show. We are not live in the Overman Cornelius studios in Collegetown. This is going to be our second podcast due to technical issues with CornellRadio.com, and we're airing from Puzzles in Collegetown. I'm Maddie Keeman, and I'm here with Noah Tannenbaum today. Noah, what's up with you?
What's going on? Nice to watch a game in an apartment. Nice to record a podcast while watching a game is what I meant.
Right. So we were unable to get the full podcast up last week. Something came up technically. But hopefully this will be up and ready to go for you guys to listen to right away. We have a ton of stuff to get into. First off, let's talk some MLB awards. Usually we'll talk with NFL scores and NBA scores for the day, but since it's a podcast, we don't really know if there's a point of doing that. So let's talk some MLB awards. So you want to talk all? Let's do the four major ones.
Four major awards.
So AL, NL, Cy Young. In the AL, Corey Kluber took it over King Felix. That was probably the most controversial one.
I disagree that it was controversial. I'm pulling up his numbers now, but he had a great year.
Second half of the year, he was ridiculous. I think his last three starts, he had like 14, 15, and 14 strikeouts. As he ended the year extremely strong, but I don't know. To me,
he led the league in wins, was third in ERA.
He had 18 wins aren't that important. I mean, when Felix won his Cy Young, he had a losing record.
You know who was fourth in the wins?
No.
My boy Phil Hughes.
Phil Hughes, more wins than every single Yankee. And Phil Hughes, he was like the third of the inning away from 200 innings this year. Mm-hmm. That would have also been more than any Yankee starting pitcher. So looks like they made a mistake on that one. But going back to Kluber, he had more wins. He had more strikeouts, I think, higher ERA and higher WHIP. But if you're looking at it from the entire year, overall, Felix had the better numbers. It's strikeouts. The only thing that was more were strikeouts for Kluber, and I felt as though Kluber's numbers were inflated. Like the voters viewed Kluber just based off the last couple months of the year.
Identical, 235 to 286.
Right. Kluber he wasn't an all-star either. He just finished the year off strong, and Felix didn't finish the year off as strong. But in the beginning of the year, he was dominant. He was on that long streak of 7 innings, 1 or 2 earned runs or less. He was on a roll early in the middle of the year. But
I think the better discussion is, there's been so much outrage in recent years about different voting things from the baseball writers and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think everybody, for some reason, looking at the numbers between Hernandez and Kluber, it's weird that everybody accepted Kluber. As everybody's like, yeah, they got it right. Good work, baseball writers. Let's move on. And I don't know if they did get it right. I think that Kluber had a great year. It was a lot of it went into voting that he was unknown. Everybody's like, who the hell is this guy? Let's give him the Cy Young. He's an unknown guy. But Felix is probably the better pitcher, I agree, and has had a better career. So it's an interesting question.
A 2.14 ERA and a .92 WHIP. I read somewhere that was the lowest WHIP for someone to ever not win the Cy Young.
Wow.
.92. I mean, I don't know. They were both deserving of it, but
Kluber's WAR.
Kluber
had a higher WAR, 7.4 to 6.8.
Wow. So yeah, I did read something from a couple of baseball writers, Ken Rosenthal and Buster Olney, who said they both voted for Corey Kluber, and they threw out a lot of super sabermetric kind of stats, and they were all in favor of Kluber. So
I'm not
that opposed to it. I do like a fresh face, and
I'm barely up to date on my hitting sabermetrics. I have no idea what they do for pitching sabermetrics, so I can't comment there. But I assume
too many numbers for Noah.
Yeah, it overwhelms me. I assume since his WAR was so much higher that Kluber was excellent, and yeah, those numbers are over my head. So I don't have much to argue about because I assume the writers know what they're doing. But the eye test, Hernandez was probably the better pitcher this year.
So. Yeah, either way, it's nice to see a fresh face. Nice to see him with someone that's relatively unknown. And honestly, most people don't know who Corey Kluber is, even baseball fans themselves. So I like it a lot. In the NL Cy Young rate, there wasn't really a race. I mean,
Kershaw best season in almost an MLB history.
Well, the crazy part about it is that he missed an entire month of the year.
Yeah, but you knew every single time Kershaw was going out, you were getting 8 innings pitched lower than 2 runs. It was unbelievable.
But in the postseason, he crumbled. Yeah. And then there was, I think my dad actually is like, Kershaw's not going to win the MVP. He stunk in the playoffs. But I'm like, it's not a playoff award. I mean, if it was a playoff award, like Pablo Sandoval would have won like MVP the last like 3 times.
Yeah,
it's just not.
Are we going to talk about Sandoval and some free agency news?
We'll get to that in a bit. So, yeah, NL Cy Young, there was no discussion. AL MVP, very similar. Not really much of a debate. The only thing
Trout's the best player in baseball. That's just
the only thing that was holding.
Will be for a long time.
The only thing that was holding Trout back really the last couple of years was the fact that Miguel Cabrera was just putting up historically ridiculous numbers hitting. But Trout's wars his first 2 years were insane, and then this year they were back to earth almost. But he had his best year power, and he had his best power numbers of his career. But steals were down. I think he ended up with like 15 or 16, and he had his lowest WAR. So. Sabermetricians
would still led the league in WAR.
They would be like, "Oh, this is his worst season ever." But I mean, the fact that the Angels finally made the playoffs.
You know who's a weird WAR player? Is Adrian Beltre, 3rd highest WAR in the league.
Defense.
Great, excellent.
Statistics. I mean, WAR is really If you have like Juan Lagares, it's like a 5 or 6, just because he's a 6 center fielder. Jason Hayward was up there.
If we're looking at WAR rankings for the year, Trout was 1, Donaldson 2, Beltre 3. Michael Brantley, who I've never heard of,
and the Indians.
4th.
The key about all of those things is all of them are good fielders. So to me though, the only real tight race was the NL MVP. A lot of people aren't in favor of having a pitcher up for MVP, but if Verlander won it a few years back, how could Kershaw not have won it this year? His numbers were better than Verlander's in every way. Mm-hmm. And there was just no real other top contender. I mean, the other two, the second and third place were Giancarlo Stanton and Andrew McCutchen, and both of them only played about 145, 146 games. Had Giancarlo not gotten hit in the face by that pitch, I think there's a good shot it would have been him.
Well, look, none of them had MVP numbers. Stanton hit 37 homers and 105 RBIs. Excellent numbers, but batting .288 really isn't going to get you.
Trout batted .287.
But Trout's a much better fielder than Stanton is. And
Probably.
More valuable to his team.
Probably.
Stanton's the best player.
Not according to this new contract that Giancarlo got. We'll get to that in a few minutes.
Unbelievable.
But it's pretty ridiculous.
I hope he likes being a one-man show.
It's very ridiculous.
Literally.
But even McCutchen got hit by a pitch also and broke a rib, so... Had there been some guy, say, like, I don't know, some really good player with, like, 40 homers, 120 RBIs, bat 320, like, then, yeah, there would have been a much better discussion, but Kershaw had to be the guy, and he absolutely deserves it. The only other argument is the fact that he pitches once every 5 days, and he didn't pitch that many innings this year. He pitched less than
the whole month of April.
Just under 200 innings, but when he did pitch, he was so dominant that... You just couldn't take that away.
I think it was a combination of no strong candidate, really,
right,
and having one of the most dominant years. If you're going to give the pitcher an MVP award, it was this year to do it.
100%.
And I think he got lucky almost that there wasn't a dominant field player, but you can't say Kershaw didn't deserve this award. He was unbelievable in every facet of the game, and there wasn't really much to argue about. Everybody is pretty content.
Mm-hmm. So let's move on to some free agency off-season MLB news. I love the MLB hot stove, and I love that it's called the hot stove. How many other leagues have a name for their a nickname for their off-season, or like rumors and whatnot? Hot stove. That's cool.
I guess it's the only one, but also the MLB off-season is the least exciting out of any other off-season.
It sucks.
Yeah,
flat out sucks.
It's bad. There's no really timeline for anything where.
Right.
There's no draft. There's no like one big week.
Yeah, NBA free agency. It starts right after the draft,
right.
and you have 2 months of
that
madness.
July 1st, like at midnight.
That week,
it's like right now. Like Michael Kadari this past week signed with the Mets 2 years, like $15 million.
I don't understand how anybody is excited about that signing, and people are.
And they lost their first round pick.
It's baffling.
They lost the first rounder, so it doesn't really make much sense.
Michael Kadari is a very serviceable player that you sign about 2 weeks into training camp when you realize. They don't have a veteran leader.
He's a better player than that, dude.
I agree. He's
a better player. He's done really well, even though it has been in Colorado.
It's a weird first signing for the Mets, But
And the fact that they lost the 15th, like I think it was the 15th overall pick in the draft. Sign Michael a
21
$35
million over 2 years.
21 mil. All right, but so to do that for a 36-year-old player, it just doesn't make much sense to me. But they need a bat, and I do like they're finally not being cheap. And they were talking to the Rockies also about Tulowitzki.
There's a difference between spending and spending smart. I don't think this was a great signing. I think you wait a little bit. If you're willing to spend money, go out and get somebody who's going to make an immediate impact. Kadire, to me, has Jason Bay written all over him.
They are bringing the fences in, though.
We've
heard this story before.
All right, we'll bring in the fences.
So let's get back on topic, though. So Giancarlo Stanton signed this ridiculous 13-year, $325 million extension to stay in Miami.
My biggest problem with this, well, two problems. Miami doesn't spend money historically, like ever.
Right.
So they might never sign anybody ever again, and he will play in a one-man outfield. But second is Giancarlo Stanton is not Albert Pujols.
No,
he's
not.
Great, but he's not. No. He's never won an MVP. He's never really been until this year. He wasn't even a top 5 player in the league.
I don't know. I don't even know if he is.
And how do you give this much money to a guy who's never been to the playoffs?
He's 25. I don't have the exact age in front of me. I'll look it up real quick, but he's still really young.
How do you give this much money?
13 years is a young, but this apparently was their plan the whole time. I mean, the fact that when they first moved over to he is 25. When they moved over, he just turned 25. But when they moved over to Miami a couple years ago, and they brought in Reyes and Burley, so they were like spending some money, and
then they sold it.
They let him all go. But to me, I mean, they locked up Giancarlo. They're trying to lock up Jose Fernandez, who's a stud, but was hurt last year, unfortunately.
I understand, but in modern baseball, you don't win.
That's not good enough, though.
You don't win with those types of contracts. If you look at any of the teams who have won recently, all in homebred farm system guys, you don't win in free agency. The Yankees haven't won since 2009, and that's really the only team that does it. The Giants have all homegrown talent.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think
Cardinals.
The Cardinals. I don't see the Red Sox when they won. They didn't.
Yeah.
All their big signings failed. Crawford, Gonzalez, all those guys. Right. They won with homebred system. So I don't see this move by the Marlins making any sense. And yeah, he's a great player. He'll sell tickets. He'll hit home runs. But if every team's goal should be to win, I don't understand. And you can't win with Giancarlo Stanton getting over $300 million over the next 13 years.
You can't blame Giancarlo. I mean, if somebody offered you this contract, you can't say no matter what the team is.
That amount of money is unbelievable, but it's similar to Robinson Cano, where you take the money over the titles, because Seattle's never going to do much.
Probably not.
Out west, and Miami's now never going to do much. Yeah, they're multimillionaires and are incredibly wealthy people, but at some point, don't you want to win? Cano already won, so you can't knock him. Stanton, I think you can knock a little more because, yeah, $300 million is an absurd amount of money, but the Red Sox wanted him badly. The Red Sox with Stanton are a World Series team again. So
this is just—it's ridiculous. It's just flat out ridiculous. It pains
me to say that about the Red Sox. That they're only one guy away, where the Yankees are a few more than one guy away.
It's so absurd that no player is worth this kind of money.
No.
Not a single major league baseball.
If anybody it's Clayton Kershaw.
And the fact that something like he got paid. He got paid last offseason. But there's not a single MLB player who's worth this kind of money. You can make the case for basketball, like some guy like LeBron would, because
they get paid nothing.
A single player in basketball can make a much, much, much bigger difference than a single player in baseball can.
It's also unbelievable that the most guaranteed money in the NFL goes to Rodgers. I think is the most guaranteed, and it's $45 million.
That's nothing. Giancarlo makes that in 2 years. Less than 2 years. Less than.
It's unbelievable.
It's crazy.
The disparity between sports.
And that just goes to show how well baseball is doing right now, revenue-wise. So we're both on the same page that this contract is pretty ridiculous, but it is what it is, and we'll see how it pans out for them. He does have a no-trade clause and does have an opt-out clause. Just the exact terms haven't been disclosed yet.
I think the happiest person in this, happiest and saddest, was Trout got a huge contract, but it was a short deal. So
it was just to avoid arbitration.
He's going to hit free agency, I think, when he's
late 20s, yeah.
So he is going to get paid literally $1 zillion.
That's going to be like a 10-year, $500 million contract.
It's going to be unbelievable. And
Yeah.
assuming baseball's on the same trajectory it is now, earnings-wise,
That's ridiculous.
no matter what amount of money you told me, I'd believe it.
Yeah, it's insane. So let's go over with free agency starting. It's underway now with Victor Martinez re-signed. AL MVP runner-up Victor Martinez.
Weird that quietly.
I mean,
Very quietly.
he's very, very productive year. Although he was their DH, 4 years, $68 million. So let's go over some of the elite free agents this year. So let's go over a couple of hitters and a couple of pitchers. Hitters, Hanley Ramirez from the Dodgers. I don't see he coming off a down year. 2 years ago, he was really good.
Yeah.
This past year was very down year for him. What do you think?
He has value because it's hard to find a hard-hitting shortstop these days.
Right.
That's where all of his value lies. So he's going to get paid somewhere a lot. And he hasn't, since he left Miami, really, he hasn't been as good than the Florida Marlins when he left.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't been nearly as good, but he's still a very productive, power-hitting shortstop who is a below-average fielder, admittedly. But you got to find some hitting at shortstop, and he's really one of the few guys who could do it, so he has inherent value. And, yeah, who else did you say?
So you got Hanley. Russell Martin, catcher from the Pirates, is going to get paid too.
Going to get paid. They think
He'll make Brian McCann kind of money.
He'll get Brian McCann type money, and he's going to go, I've heard, to the Cubs with Madden.
I've heard that.
And as a Yankee fan, it pains me that Russell Martin is good again because he could not.
He wanted to resign with the Yankees a couple years ago.
Yeah, but I wouldn't have re-signed him then either. He could not hit at all in the playoffs.
It was pretty bad.
He great fielder, great fielding catcher, but he was batting 7th and I think batting 180.
Let's go over
for the Yankees towards the end.
What do you think about Pablo Sandoval? He's looking for 6. I think it was 6 years, well over $100 million.
The weird thing is that the Giants, which is a weird thing for the Giants considering how well run their franchise is, they do reward longevity with the team with that inexplicable Lincecum contract from a few years ago.
I mean, back-to-back Cy Young. I mean,
but he was 2 years removed from that and a reliever when they did that. So they do reward.
Oh, he wasn't a reliever yet.
Yeah, he definitely was.
No way.
That was surprisingly recent, actually.
It was after their second World Series.
I'm gonna look that up.
They re-signed him.
What do you think about Sandoval though?
I think he's going to end up staying with the Giants and get paid a lot.
Yo,
that's what I would do.
Mike, are you like our stat boy today? Or are you like our Tony Reale and our PTI?
Mike Wax, guest stat boy.
So
usually behind the scenes.
I just like proving Matt and Noah for that matter wrong.
Yeah.
So this is Mike Wax, by the way. We're at his apartment, Puzzles. So he will be giving our rapid fire questions later on in the show, and you've heard his voice a bit throughout so far.
Jumping in where he feels fit.
So a couple other names, both linked to PEDs. Melky Cabrera and Nelson Cruz.
I wouldn't pay either.
Melky back to the Yankees.
I don't. No,
is that a thing?
That's not gonna happen.
It's been mentioned, but not very seriously.
It won't happen.
It's been thrown around.
Where do you think those two can wind up? Because now Cruz, they're both coming off really good years.
Coming off really good years, but I don't pay either of those guys. I have no faith in them post PEDs.
Melky hasn't been horrible. He's had some success.
Cruz we already had this conversation on the show. Cruz got suspended for PEDs, came back and hit 45 homers. No chance he wasn't still on PEDs.
A controversial episode.
So let's go over a couple of the big pitchers. So, Lester, you got Shields. Am I missing one?
The weird thing...
Oh, Scherzer.
The weird thing is that Lester has been linked strongly to Kansas City, which I've seen.
Which doesn't make much sense to me.
Doesn't make much sense.
They don't spend much money and they're letting Shields walk.
Well, Shields...
Lester's
Big Game James, we've had this talk, but also the biggest ripoff of a nickname.
Far from Big Game James.
So...
That's James Worthy's name.
Yeah,
not
they
James
need...
Shields.
I think Lester would be great for the Royals if the Royals want to prove... Because everybody right now thinks that the Royals were a fluke, that they're going to disappear into mediocrity for the next 15 years, which is probably unfair to say, but Yost is going to come back to earth and some of their fluky stuff won't
It's probably
work.
realistic, though.
Yeah, so it would really send a message to the league if they sign Lester. Hey, we're here to stay. We got a young team. We got up-and-coming pitching. We have Brandon Finnegan in the bullpen. We got all these young guys who can lead a team. Greg Holland, Davis. You have all these guys who it's unfair for people to say that they're going to go away, but if they don't make a top-end move, they could go away.
Someone's going to pay Max Scherzer. After he turned
I think
down,
he's coming back.
he turned down 6 years, $144 million from them last year. He bet on himself, and he made the right choice. I can see a team like Texas or Seattle bidding big on him.
Texas
is definitely interesting.
Texas
they need to do
needs
something.
pitching.
They need something.
So they haven't replaced Cliff Floyd.
They had one of the more unfortunate years with their injuries were unbelievable this year. Everybody got hurt.
Yeah.
It's a good franchise. Nolan Ryan knows what he's doing leading it.
Who's their new manager?
Have they hired a new manager yet?
I think they did.
What happened to Washington? I know what happened. But
It was he announced that he had an affair and
So he has
just
to leave the team.
personal issues. Yeah, and it was enough after the whole cocaine
Tim
thing.
Boger,
Not sure who that
the
is.
Red Sox guy.
A Francona Red Sox guy or a Farrell Red Sox
I don't
guy?
know. There's a picture of him.
There's a good chance that he was a Francona guy just because Farrell was under Francona too. But yeah, Scherzer will get paid. He'll get paid more than Lester and Shields. I don't really know where Shields will end up, but I think Lester to the Cubs is realistic just because of the Theo Epstein Lester connection.
Yeah, I think Shields can go to the Cubs, but they would sign. That would be like a two-headed deal.
Lester.
He wouldn't be their top-end starter.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
I think reunite Madden and Shields, which would make a lot of sense.
The Cubs hitting prospects are ridiculous. The pitching's what they
Rizzo,
need.
Baez.
So if they make a move for one of those big three pitchers, watch out.
Well, there was a lot of speculation of the Mets and Cubs getting in talks with one of the Cubs hitters and one of the Mets pitchers.
I don't think the Mets are ever going to pull the trigger.
I don't think so. I also don't see any need for them to because with 4 top-end starters, the Mets can make some noise when you get average hitting.
Right.
Because every game, the Yankees saw what they did this year. The Yankees pitching was so good, they were giving up 3 runs a game. If you had bet the under in any Yankees game this year, you win. So I think the Mets are going to try to copy that blueprint and get a little more top-end hitting.
Right.
Have a resurgent year from David Wright with the field fences in. And you never know. Maybe the Mets can make a run at this thing.
You do never know, though.
Because the Braves aren't, the Braves aren't anything special. The Nationals are going to be great again. But the AL East, NL East might be open.
Mm-hmm. That's true. That's definitely a good point.
What do you got from Lincecum?
Last year, Lincecum signed a 2-year deal for $35 million.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what. The Giants are known for rewarding their own.
And right after in 2011, he went 13-14, and then signed a 2-year deal for $40.5 million.
It's worked out for them, though.
That's why
Matt Cain also got a big contract.
They had offered him a 5-year, $100 million extension that he declined.
He's still on the team?
Yeah, he stunk last year, but he got hurt. He missed the rest of the year. So let's move on from baseball. Let's talk some college football. College football playoffs, big weekend with the Mississippi State-Alabama game.
It's such a shame about Mississippi State because
they blew it.
They played a great second half.
Mm-hmm.
They played a very good second half. I said before the game to a few people that if Prescott doesn't turn the ball over, which he had been apt to do in a bunch of the first games, which was weird for a front-running Heisman candidate, he turned the ball over a lot. If he held onto the ball, they win that game.
Right.
The Alabama came out like a ball of fire, and Dan Mullen, the sign of a good coach, especially in college, is halftime adjustments.
Mm-hmm.
And Mississippi State came out in the second half like a new team, and they made all the right adjustments. And that was a 19-3 game at half that ended 24-20.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Something like that. I know that was the final score. It was like 22-25 or something, something weird.
But even so, Mississippi State dominated the second half.
Right.
They scored a soft touchdown to cover the 8.5 at the end. But I was impressed by them. They're going to still stay in the top 4. They're in the playoff right now. It's unfair for them to fall out if they only have one loss in the SEC West. They have the Egg Bowl this week, which everybody had circled on their calendar against Ole Miss, which now Ole Miss is really just playing spoiler, which is unfortunate for them after the start they had. But with the Egg Bowl and Iron Bowl this week, we're going to know in the coming weeks, we're going to know a lot more about the college football playoff, and the SEC West is going to cannibalize itself like everybody expected. But the Auburn and Ole Miss are now just out to play spoiler, which nobody predicted 2 weeks ago.
Let's say Alabama wins the Iron Bowl and wins the SEC title game against whether it's Georgia or whether it's Georgia or who's the other team that they could potentially play?
Well, Florida lost.
Missouri.
Yesterday. Yeah, Missouri.
Is it Missouri? I don't even know. But let's say they win out.
They're the number
Mississippi State has to make it. You're trying to say if
they lose to Ole Miss.
Mississippi State wins the Egg Bowl.
If Mississippi State wins
they won't be
Egg Bowl,
playing the
top
SEC.
4 lock.
They won't be playing the SEC title game, But you can't not put them in if their one loss is at Alabama by 3.
They're a lock.
They're a lock. Florida State probably winning out. They're a lock. Oregon, lock if they win.
If Ohio State wins out, are they in the? If they win the Big Ten, wins out, win the Big Ten.
They wouldn't be a lock. It depends who the other teams are.
But does
Auburn still have one loss?
No,
they have two.
They have two. Yesterday.
What is TCU still in contention? If TCU wins
had a
out,
terrible first half against Kansas.
They won though. They pulled it off. We can't do that because if Florida State
Florida State they have some sort of deal with the devil.
If they win out, they're in.
Well,
so then if Mississippi State wins out there, and if Alabama wins out there, and if TCU wins out, that'd be some fun. Because TCU and Oregon, if they both win out, you just never know.
We saw the first top 6 team end their season last night. Arizona State losing at Oregon State.
They're done.
So they're done. Nobody, I don't think anybody really had confidence in them.
They had an outside shot, though.
They had an outside shot if they won out and won the Pac-12. But now you have, I think the locks right now, if most likely to play in the college football playoff, are Alabama and Oregon. I think those are the two who are most likely.
Mm-hmm.
Third, I would say, is Mississippi State. And I'd give the 4th spot.
Oregon. Oh, you said Oregon.
I said Oregon. Alabama, Oregon, Mississippi State. I'd give the 4th spot to TCU.
Right.
And then Ohio State would have to do something miraculous.
How about Florida State? You got to give Florida State if they're undefeated.
Oh, I forgot about Florida State.
Yeah, that's Florida State knocks out it's fun right now. I mean, chances are not all these teams are going to win out. So these next few weeks are going to be great. They're going to be awesome.
Everything anybody wanted.
There will always be controversy no matter what.
Yeah, but can you imagine, if we did this hypothetical, which is a stupid hypothetical, the BCS this year? Can you imagine the top 2 teams? It would be a mess.
It would be bad.
Perfect time for the college football playoff.
It'd be pretty bad. So, this is the SBS Report, the Cornell ILR Sports Business Society's new radio show, our second podcast, show number 8. Let's go. We have a few more topics left. We're going to talk some Heisman, we're going to talk some hoops, and then we're going to talk a little bit about NFL news and start of the college basketball season. So, Heisman race, it has to be a two-man show now, right? Mariota and Melvin Gordon.
Everybody always talks about a Heisman moment.
Melvin Gordon had a Heisman game.
You can't have much of a better Heisman moment than 408 yards rushing through 3 quarters. 3 quarters.
It's absurd.
Those are, people say video game numbers.
It's more than video game numbers.
I've never had 408 yards rushing in a video game, personally.
You're not very good at video games.
Apparently. But it's unbelievable when I admittedly didn't watch the game and got the ESPN alert on my phone. I was like, holy, what the hell just happened here?
Yeah.
And it wasn't against a pushover.
It was
against Nebraska, a Big Ten conference game. A team that only had one loss.
The black shirts? Yeah.
Team that only
definitely didn't look that way at all. And with Todd Gurley out for the year with a torn ACL and his future unknown, whether or not he's going to enter the draft, you got to think that Melvin Gordon is going to be the top back taken, right? You have to.
You have to, but I had this conversation earlier. Running backs don't have nearly the same value that they once had in the NFL. So I would not be surprised because I don't know Gordon's numbers. If let's say he runs slower than a 4.4. I think if he has to run
quick.
He has to run sub 4.4 to get in the first round.
No, not sub 4.4. Sub 4.5. 4.5 or less. For running back?
Yeah.
Sub 4.4 is real fast.
Yeah.
Sub 4.5.
But think about the last time a first round draft pick running back had an immediate impact. Eddie Lacy was a second round pick.
He was.
So he had a relative immediate impact. Bill Barno wrote a great article on Grantland the other day revisiting the 08 draft class. That was the class with McFadden, Jones, Chris Johnson, Forte, Jamal Charles.
Right.
Excellent running back class.
Yeah.
But if you're looking at it, Chris Johnson was a flash in the pan, had 2 or 3 great years. Forte and Charles are the best of that class, consistently very good, and Forte has made a name for himself as a receiving back. And the only back, which I agree with Barnwell when he said the only back that's getting better now is the 7th round pick, Justin Forsett. On Baltimore. And he gave numbers. Anytime he was given a chance, he was in Seattle for a while, on his career, he averaged 6 yards a carry. Then he went to Houston, was great in Houston as a spell back for Arian Foster, and now he's finally been given the primary back role, and he's having a very competent year for Baltimore.
Yeah. I mean, he's been lighting up for sure. He's been playing really, really well with after the whole Ray Rice situation. Bernard Pierce hasn't been delivering at all.
He's one of those. That's why, in going back to Melvin Gordon, if I'm a GM, I don't waste a first-round pick on a running back.
What do you think Mariota? I mean, we had to see how the last few weeks pan out, but Mariota doesn't make mistakes. He's locked for a top 5 pick now.
Yeah, but he doesn't excite me. I think RG3 didn't excite me either. Luck that year was to me the best quarterback, and I think everybody would agree he is now. I am much more of a. If I wanted a quarterback for the future, I want a prototypical NFL body. I want a pocket passer, and I think Mariota is that. Mm-hmm. More so than RG3 is.
I think he's smarter than he's a lot smarter than RG3.
He is, but he doesn't excite me.
He doesn't run. He doesn't force runs nearly as much as RG3 does.
Yeah,
he's smart about when he runs. Kind of like Russell Wilson.
He is a bit of a weird release. I think he has to work on his fundamentals a little bit. Mm-hmm. He just doesn't excite me so much. In the right system, like any NFL draft pick, of course he could succeed. But I don't think he's an instant plug-in-and-play star. Mm-hmm.
No, I fully agree with you there. So let's move on to some hoops now. Okay, so let's talk about a few of the teams that aren't doing too great so far. 3 teams come to mind for me. The Sixers, the Lakers, and the Knicks. We spoke a lot about the Lakers on the show so we're not going to really get into that. But
you don't really want to.
No, I've bashed the Lakers a lot the last couple weeks.
I'm just saying, I went on record a few weeks ago saying that Kobe Bryant's going to win the scoring title.
You did.
And he is number 1 in scoring right now.
Yeah.
And there's really nobody who could beat him. The Knicks can't score, so Melo's out.
No.
And Kobe is going to be taking 40 shots a game.
And Kevin Durant's probably going to come back too late.
Exactly. So
Kobe also newly the leading
most misses of all time.
So
when you play shooting guard in the league for as long as he has,
it's understandable. Brett Favre threw the most picks in NFL history.
It's the same exact thing.
Yeah.
Same exact thing. So the Sixers got blown out the other night by the Mavs. You got to think they're tanking.
The Sixers are Michael Carter Williams wrote the article on Derek Jeter's Players Tribune.
It's beyond.
Don't talk to me about tanking.
It's beyond tanking. It's a joke.
They scored 28 points in the first half against Dallas.
They were down like 71-28 at half.
Also, weird team that's not tanking. Denver let up 84 points to Portland in the first half.
Denver should be tanking.
84 points.
The Lakers should be tanking. The Knicks.
That's the thing.
The Knicks do have a first round pick this year, though.
It's
exciting.
A crazy time.
But they're not going to try tanking, even though they probably should.
They're not going to try tanking, and they're not going to. But knowing the Knicks, they're going to get into an 8 seed. Because they don't want an 8 seed, they're going to get the 8 seed.
So talking about, who do the Sixers have? Noel, Carter Williams, Tony Rodin, Joel Embiid, whoever the top 5 picks going to be this year.
Everybody thinks Sam Hinkie's a genius. I don't see how Embiid and Noel can ever play together. They're the same player.
Embiid's Embiid can score. He can but Embiid's bigger.
Yeah, but
Embiid's has a legit center body. Noel has more of a power forward body, but Noel plays more like a center. And
they
Embiid
play
plays more
above
like
the
power.
rim. You can't have both of them on the court at the same time.
Well, we have to wait and see how.
No,
it works
of course.
first.
I think they're going to make a bunch more trades, but I don't really know what Philly's overall plan is because we've accumulating draft picks.
We've seen bigs been able to play really well together. Pau Gasol, Andrew Bynum recently, Duncan and David Robinson.
Yeah, but the factor in all that is they have an offensive game.
And Embiid does.
Embiid does, but he's not a developed offensive player yet.
No, not yet.
So I think that's a big if. Right now, he's very similar to Noel. They both have a ton of great defenders with a ton of upside. Noel will never be a great offensive player. He'll be a lockdown defensive player.
Right. And
Embiid might be, but you don't know. So the Philly has an interesting situation. And also, Michael Carter Williams might not be that good. He was the beneficiary of a very weak.
They don't even like him.
Very weak rookie.
They were trying to trade him. They wanted Dante Exum. They were trying to trade him.
Well, Dante Exum was a weird pick. He's not very good.
I don't think I completely agree.
I don't think he's very good. Alfred Payton's the best point guard in this draft.
I mean, we haven't seen much of him yet, but I completely agree with you there.
The Knicks, but we could talk about. But the Knicks, in about 2 weeks, the Knicks have gone from beating the Cavs to saying, holy crap, maybe they're not so bad, to ditching the triangle, to then losing 6 in a row, including 2 games at home to the Magic and the Jazz. And then finally got off the schneid today. But Derek Fisher does not really have much of a clue of the substitutions and stuff. The Knicks are a weird team, so it's hard to blame them there.
I think it's hard to blame them because they are a weird team and they're just trying to figure out what to do.
The Knicks roster doesn't make any sense.
Right.
3 of the exact same players, Clay Anthony Early, Tim Hardaway, and J.R. Smith are all
okay.
two
So
guards.
if you bring them up, who do they trade? Shump, Hardaway, Smith.
Ideally, in an ideal world, you trade Smith and keep the other 2 and get Smith off the books, forget his existence ever happened. He's a poison. Get him as far away from New York as possible. Actually, no, trade him to Brooklyn. Screw it. Get him I don't care how far away he goes. Get him out of Manhattan. But that's in an ideal world. That's not going to happen because nobody will take that idiotic contract that they gave him after the playoffs 2 years ago.
He's 1 more year after this year?
It's really a bad deal.
Or is it a year and an
I
option?
think so. And there's I'm convinced in my own little made-up theories that Phil Jackson has never said a word to JR. Has walked by him doesn't even, forgets
Doesn't acknowledge his existence.
Doesn't acknowledge him at all.
I think very few players involved, very few people in the Knicks organization talk to J.R. Smith.
He's a sign of all the bad that has come in the last 10 years. It was great when they got him for cheap out of China. It was great when he led them in the playoffs. And then once he elbowed Jason Terry in the face, it all went downhill. That was a microcosm of his career. 1 elbow to the face and he's done.
So who are some of the top guys going to be available next year? Jahlil Okafor. Who's the guy playing in China right now?
Oh, Emmanuel Mudiay. They say he spurned SMU, but there are definitely some recruiting violations there.
He was, but he was going to go to Amsterdam.
SMU would have been a top 5 preseason team with Larry Brown. They're returning a bunch of everybody from a team that was one of the first 4 out of the NCAA tournament last year. So Mudiay would have made them a top 5 team. They would have been the favorites in the American Conference, which is the dumbest name in the world, over returning national champs UConn.
Right.
But then Mudiay all of a sudden went to go pull to Brandon Jennings and went to go play abroad for a year. But it came out that the way Larry Brown handled it made it seem like, this was probably a good choice. You would have been suspended. I would have been suspended. SMU has had a history of recruiting violations. So he's going to be great. He's one of the most pure point guards. I think he's 6'3", which is a very nice size.
Right.
He's a prototypical NBA point guard. I'm excited for him. Jahlil Okafor is going to be great. Miles Turner, I think is his name, is another big name. Mm-hmm. And Duke basketball is going to be very exciting.
Duke's contender.
Matt's a Duke fan.
Kentucky's gonna. Well, they almost lost to Buffalo today, but Buffalo's gonna be up there today. No, I'm excited about Duke ball.
I'm excited about Duke ball too. I don't consider myself a Duke fan, but I'm not anti-Duke like a lot of people are.
Everyone is.
You're more pro-Duke than...
I'm more pro-Duke than I am anti. Right. I really don't like North
They have a
legit...
They have a legit center, and they're not going to solely rely on 3-pointers like they've had the last few years. That's why they've lost early. They've lived and died off the 3. And now they can have legit...
exciting again this year, where you got Ryan Boatwright finally stepping into the number 1 role that he should have had for a while. Mm-hmm. They got Sam Cassell Jr., actually. Sam Cassell's son is now their starting point guard. They have, I got to look up his name, but they have an NC State transfer who is a big player. I'm going to look up his name. You can continue. Mm-hmm. College football is going to be a lot of fun this year, or college basketball. Rodney Purvis is the NC State transfer to UConn, and they're expecting a lot of things. Kevin Ollie said about him during their run last year, he's like, it's like having a Ferrari in my garage that I can't use. Talking about Rodney Purvis. So a lot of people out in Storrs, Connecticut are excited about this team. And Kevin Ollie, it could be his last. He just signed an extension, but college coaches' extensions don't mean anything. Mm-hmm. So nobody would be surprised if he left and was one of the handpicked coaches of like Durant or somebody when he goes to a new team.
Right. No, that makes sense. That makes a ton of sense. So let's go over a couple quick things to wrap things up today on the SBS Report. Adam Silver wrote, commissioner of the NBA, who I think's done an unbelievable job so far.
What I saw Andrew Brandt from ESPN say, that he speaks like a person, not a politician. He's a very personable guy. he's one of the first commissioners who, like, you feel as a personal side, he acknowledges gambling. He does all these things that make him seem like he's actually a real person, not this robot put there by the owners.
No, it makes a ton of sense, and I don't know. He's like he knows the deal almost. Like he knows that like he's younger. He knows how to work social media. He's marketing the game incredibly well. He couldn't have handled the Donald Trump situation any better.
And his deputy, ILR alum Mark Tatum,
yes,
you could have to imagine has had somewhat of an impact with his terrific education.
Right.
So the NBA is. I think it's an exciting time for the NBA where a few years ago, do you remember a lot of people had the NBA written off when they were talking about getting ads on jerseys and all these things. Everybody said the NBA is done. And now it's in as good of a position as it's been in a long time.
These Christmas jerseys are hideous, though.
Yeah, they're really not.
And they are talking about the ads again.
Are they?
So what do you think of this whole gambling piece in the New York Times? I agree with it.
I'm all for it.
There's nothing. I mean, people do it all the time, no matter what, whether or not it's legal or not.
People gamble.
Fantasy sports are huge. That's just something else that people gamble on. You can't avoid it.
It just makes so much sense as long as they have an effective way of regulating with officials and players gambling, which is a big thing. Mm-hmm. Once they have that ironed out completely and they have the right punishments set in place, first offense is a 1-year ban, second offense is a lifetime ban, whatever it is.
As long as you can avoid a Pete Rose, Tim Donaghy situation.
Exactly. I think that there's no downside.
Right. Completely agree.
Can't be. And then, the federal government will block a lot of parts of it because it's supposed to be PC America.
Like what happened in Jersey.
Yeah. So it might not happen for a while and it's going to be in a legal battle, but I think it's important to get the conversation going, and Silver starting it shows that he's in tune with what the people want.
Completely agree there. So let's go. This is a fun topic to me. ESPN came out with some of the worst contracts in the league, and Jay Cutler's first top one. And earlier today on Sunday NFL Countdown,
I have a problem with him being number one.
Adam Schefter wrote that the Bears might try it. They're going to entertain they're going to try trading Cutler this offseason.
We don't know the specifics of what Schefter was saying, but there's some caveat in the contract where they saved $12.5 million by trading him this year. And Schefter reports that there are teams that are interested. And honestly, teams should be interested. When you have teams like the Rams, Jaguars, teams that can't develop quarterbacks at all, why not?
If you put him in the right system.
Invest in a veteran quarterback who's proven to win games. He might not win you the big games and he might infuriate a fan base, but Jacksonville fans deserve to be infuriated in that way rather than, pitying them.
If you put him in the right system, under the right coach, with the right weapons.
Why?
His weapons are unbelievable right now, but he doesn't have the right coach.
Why doesn't he go to Tampa Bay?
What if he
reunite with Lovie Smith?
That'd be interesting.
Josh McCown and Glennon aren't having...
That'd be interesting for sure. That's a good one. I think
Tampa Bay is... And I think another one, Jeff Fisher could reel him in St. Louis. Because when do they officially move on for Brad?
Jeff Fisher's on a tightrope too. I mean, he hasn't done anything since he's gotten there. It's his third year.
His starting quarterback's been hurt 3 years in a row.
So he needs to prove himself sooner or later.
I think
Cutler would be nice there too.
And my personal worst contract is Andy Dalton. I think Andy Dalton's a terrible quarterback. He's never done anything.
Well, you won't forget one other. Joe Flacco.
Joe Flacco won a Super Bowl. He deserves to be rewarded. Those two guys didn't win a Super Bowl.
I don't care. The amount of money he's getting far more than both of them, and Joe Flacco's he's just not a good quarterback. He got hot. Whatever. Yeah. So we've been waiting all day for this. So it's the return of our rapid fire questions.
Long-awaited return.
So Mike, what do you got?
For the first question, who do you think is the worst team in New York right now?
In every sport?
All of pro sports.
Basketball, football.
The worst team. We're not counting the Sabres. I don't even know if the Sabres or Bills are doing.
They don't.
Well, New York Metro. New York Metro.
Tri-state area.
Oh, do you want to include the Devils?
No.
They wouldn't be the worst though.
I think it has to be between the Knicks and the Jets.
But the Giants are only a game better.
Yeah, but
the Giants are much better.
The Giants have a vision for the future, sort of, where the Jets have nothing.
But not really. They have to make a big decision on Eli this offseason.
Banners fly forever. Two Super Bowl MVPs.
They're not the worst team in New York though.
They're due to win the Super Bowl next year. That's all I'm going to say.
I don't think the Jets are.
Every year we graduate. The Giants win the Super Bowl.
I don't know. Who do you think is the worst team?
The Knicks. They're the sorriest team in New York. Just watching them play, they have zero cohesiveness. J.R. Smith took a fadeaway 3 while down 2 points to the Utah Jazz the other night when Carmelo was begging for the ball and he didn't even hit rim.
I would normally say the Islanders. The Islanders playing out of their
second place
minds.
in the Metro.
The Islanders are playing really well this year.
Second place in the Metro.
Let's go.
Bring me Pittsburgh.
Knicks.
Brooklyn has been very disappointing.
It's the
We can
Knicks.
say that.
It's the Knicks.
It has to be the Knicks.
It's the Knicks. Has to be.
What about wild card teams in the NFL?
AFC is interesting, and so both leagues are interesting because the AFC North, you have Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, and Cleveland all tied at 6 wins.
And they all have 6 wins now.
They all have 6 wins.
All 4, yeah.
So you have to imagine 2 out of those 3 teams are getting in, and then you have Kansas City and San Diego. San Diego's 2 games back, but I think they're better than that, and that they're going to make a run in the second half. So you have really 2 spots for 4 teams. Whoever doesn't win the AFC North. Actually, you can't forget about Miami.
Miami, the Chiefs, Chargers are still.
That's what I said. Yeah. So
yeah, you can't.
If I had to make a prediction on how it'll end, I think Kansas City gets in because their defense is incredible, and I think San Diego gets in. I think AFC North cannibalizes itself, and I think Pittsburgh wins a division, and Cincinnati and Cleveland.
I think Pittsburgh winning the division.
Yeah. I think Pittsburgh wins that division, and I think Kansas City gets the first wild card.
Colts,
and San Diego gets.
Colts and Pats are locks. Broncos are they'll win. They'll figure. Today was a bad loss, but they'll get their stuff together. Chiefs, I like the Chiefs. Yeah, put the Chiefs in there.
Yeah.
I don't think the Chargers are gonna get there. I think they're too inconsistent. I think last year was a fluke. I'm gonna pick 2 AFC North teams. I'm gonna go Steelers and Bengals. I don't think the Ravens have enough. I mean, I don't think they have enough. I don't know. I'm gonna go Steelers and Bengals.
No love for Cleveland?
No. No.
We all hope so, but I don't think.
How about the NFC?
The NFC is interesting also because we think Arizona's a lock, kind of, to win the division.
No, I'm gonna disagree.
don't think
I don't think they're gonna hold it without Homer. I don't think Drew. I think they're gonna run it as.
I think it has a very systematic. I think the quarterback is protected in that system. I think Stanton will thrive.
How about this? How about the 6-4 Seahawks?
I have no faith in the Seahawks. I think that there's a lot of trouble in that locker room and that they could crumble at any time. So if I had to pick, I would say Philly is going to win the NFC East. Green Bay is going to win the NFC North.
No, Philly's not winning the NFC East. I know you're a Cowboy hater, but they're not winning the NFC East. It's the Cowboys. They get Mark Sanchez isn't winning the NFC East.
I don't know about that.
They've gotten blown out today by the Pack.
And you have confidence in Tony Romo?
Far more than Mark Sanchez.
I don't know about that.
Far more than Mark.
It's not in Mark
Okay,
Sanchez.
but we agree that do we agree that only one of those teams make the playoffs? The second one doesn't get a wild card.
The Eagles aren't making the playoffs. I don't think so.
Okay, so whoever wins NFC East gets one spot. The NFC North, you have to imagine Detroit and Green Bay both get it. I think Stafford does some stupid stuff down the stretch, but their defense is much improved.
I think I'm gonna pick in the NFC South. I think the Saints are gonna end up winning it.
Me too.
I think the Packers and Lions. I think the Cowboys. It's 4.
Mm-hmm.
I got the Niners and Seahawks. I think the Cardinals are gonna crumble down the stretch.
You don't think they're gonna make the playoffs?
They're gonna crumble down the stretch.
Wow. I think Seattle misses the playoffs. I think San Francisco gets it together. I have San Francisco and Detroit as my 2 wild cards.
I like it. So what else do we got?
Staying in the NFL, tonight's Sunday night matchup between 2 AFC heavyweights. We have the Patriots, who are now 7-2, playing Andrew Luck and the Colts at 6-3. Who do you have?
I love the Pats. Love them. I genuinely don't think they'll lose again after the whole we're on to Cincinnati, the debacle in Kansas City on Monday night. I think it would be classic Belichick to say, like, F you, and we're going to run the table, and we're going to score 50 on everybody, and we'll see Peyton in Foxborough in late January.
It's definitely a potential NFL playoff preview. Definitely.
Yeah.
I think in Indy. I think Luck's gonna have a huge day. I'm gonna go Colts. I like the Colts. I think Bradshaw's gonna have a huge day too. Huge night.
41-30 New England.
That's a high scoring game.
I think it's a shootout.
I don't think it's gonna be as high scoring.
I really would love the Colts.
How about this? 27-24 Colts. Adam Vinatieri game winner against the Pats. I like that.
If we're going storylines,
It
that's a
would
better
be
storyline.
exciting.
I like that one. Is that all we got?
One more question. Back to the NBA.
What's this?
Toronto Raptors are 8-1.
81 Raptors. Who'd they lose to? Oh, was it the Bulls the other night? I think it was the Bulls the
Oh, it
other
was
night.
the Bulls. Yeah, the Bulls beat them.
Bulls are a good team.
Rose came back.
Are we confident in them?
I am.
I mean, it's the East, so they'll make the playoffs no matter what.
Well, no, they're going to be a top 3 team in the East.
Yeah, their division stinks.
Yeah, they'll be a top 3 team in the East. I think they're a trade away.
I think Kyle Lowry's a star.
Kyle Lowry and DeRozan are excellent.
And Grievous.
And Grievous.
Grievous, your boy.
That backcourt rotation.
I think they have the toughness also, even though I hate his guts. Tyler Hansbrough. He's a person you want on your team, realistically. He's terrible, but he'll get in somebody's face and do some crazy stuff. So I think Toronto's for real. I think they're one trade away. If they could trade for a 4 or 5 to replace Amir Johnson and put Amir Johnson, either trade him or move him to the 6th man so he doesn't have to start. He's kind of their weakest link right now. So a guy like Al Horford who's going to be on the block and stuff like, if they get Al Horford, they're a title team.
You forgot about the main guy that makes them relevant.
Who?
Drizzy.
The Toronto Drakes? Not the Toronto Raptors, the Toronto Drakes?
Toronto Drakes.
I think
I don't think they're actual contenders to win a title.
I don't think anybody in the East is an actual contender.
But I think they're a very good bet to get out of the first round of the playoffs at this point.
Well,
they'll have home
got out of
court.
the first round of the playoffs.
No, they didn't. They lost in 7 to Brooklyn in a
They did.
great series.
They did.
Great
It was a
series.
great series.
I like the Raptors, but I don't know if they're legit contenders. But I do like them.
One more thing. Did anyone else see Lance Stevenson slap himself in the face?
Oh
last
my
night?
God! Did you see that?
Yeah, that guy's
It's a great flop.
He's a clown, but I like.
Did you see his buzzer?
Usually I hate guys like that.
His buzzer beater a couple of weeks ago was fantastic. When he just he jumped on the announcer table.
Yeah.
He's
a character. He was born ready, except he wasn't born ready at all.
He's out of control.
He is out of control.
But that's Lance, and that's why we love him.
That's Lance being Lance.
Lance being Lance.
So Indy misses him a lot. Guess who Indy's leading scorer is?
Is it Chris Copeland?
It is Chris Copeland.
Copeland!
My man.
Chris Copeland, throwback to the Knicks.
Bringing him back
playoff
to the
year.
Knicks, right?
So that's all we have for you today on our second podcast of the SBS Report, the Cornell ILR Sports Business Society's new radio show. We will chances.
Still new?
We'll always be now.
Full season?
We'll always be now. So chances are we'll be back recording again next week. We'll not. CornellRadio.com still having some issues, and we're going to assume that they will for the foreseeable future. I think it was a pretty good show today,
I
boys.
think we did a good job for improving with what we got.
Definitely on the bit of the longer side, so hopefully you guys can listen. Hopefully our listeners can listen the whole way. But it was a good day. It was a good day for sure. So that's all we have for you today. For Mike Wax, Noah Tannenbaum, I'm Matt Akemian. Everyone have an awesome week ahead and enjoy your football.
Almost Thanksgiving.
Almost.